A 28-year-old digital marketing consultant arrives at an upscale Chicago hotel for the most important business conference of her career, only to discover the computer system double-booked her room. It's a freezing December night. Every hotel in the city is sold out, and she's seconds from sleeping in the lobby when the front desk offers one solution: share a 2-bedroom suite with a guest who's already checked in. He's a 35-year-old venture capital investor with cold gray eyes and an attitude that screams, "I regret this decision already." She's exhausted, he's arrogant, and their first interaction is so icy she considers braving the snowstorm instead. But forced proximity does strange things to people. A late-night conversation at 2 a.m., when neither can sleep, reveals the man behind the cold facade. Someone brilliant, lonely, and surprisingly vulnerable. A dinner invitation after her successful presentation becomes something neither of them planned. This story has two strangers who start as irritants and become each other's refuge. A millionaire who realizes his penthouse in one city means nothing without her in another. A woman who discovers that the most annoying person in the room might be the one who sees her most clearly. And an ending that proves sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be, even if it's sharing a hotel room with someone who drives you crazy in all the right ways. What happens next will make you believe that love doesn't care about your plans, your city, or your carefully constructed walls. Subscribe now, because this is the story that proves the person who irritates you most might be the one who completes you best. Don't miss how one hotel mistake, one shared space, and one unexpected kiss becomes the beginning of everything they didn't know they needed. Justyna Leszczyńska never imagined her life could change so drastically in one night. She stood at the front desk of an elegant hotel in downtown Chicago, clutching a small suitcase and staring in disbelief at the receptionist who'd just informed her there were no available rooms. It was a frigid December evening, and outside, heavy snow fell, covering the city streets with a white blanket. Justyna had just arrived from Milwaukee for an important business conference scheduled to begin the next morning. Her reservation had been confirmed a week ago, but now, standing before the reception desk, she was learning that the computer system had made an error and her room had been assigned to someone else. "We need to figure something out, please. I can't spend the night on the street in this weather," Justyna said, trying to remain calm, though she felt frustration building inside her. The receptionist, a young woman with blonde hair and a sympathetic expression, reviewed her computer again, clicking nervously with her mouse. "I'm truly sorry, Ms. Leszczyńska. All the hotels in the area are filled because of the conference. However, there is one solution, though it's not ideal." Justyna felt her heart accelerate. What solution? "We have one room that was reserved by Mr. Stempian. It's a suite with 2 separate bedrooms. I could ask him if he'd agree to share the suite with another guest. Of course, each of you would have your own private bedroom." Justyna hesitated. Sharing a suite with a strange man sounded absurd. But when she looked through the hotel's glass doors at the snow-covered street and thought about the alternative, she realized she had no choice. "All right, please ask him," she sighed finally. The receptionist picked up the phone and dialed the suite number. After a conversation that seemed to last forever, she hung up and smiled uncertainly. "Mr. Stempian has agreed. Please go to the 9th floor, suite 903. Justyna took a deep breath, thanked her, and headed to the elevator. As the cabin rose upward, she tried to calm her nerves. "It's just one night," she told herself silently. "In the morning I'll go to the conference, then find another hotel." The door to suite 903 opened before she could knock. In the doorway stood a man in his mid-30s, tall with dark hair and piercing gray eyes. He was dressed in an elegant black shirt and pants that suggested he wasn't an ordinary tourist. His posture was stiff and his expression cold and not very friendly. "Ms. Leszczyńska, I assume," he said without a smile, stepping aside to let her in. "I'm Mark Stempian. Please come in." Justina crossed the threshold, looking around the luxurious suite. It was spacious, with a large living room, 2 bedrooms on either side, and a panoramic view of illuminated Chicago. Despite the elegance of the place, the atmosphere was icy, and Mark looked as if he deeply regretted his decision. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Justina said, trying to be polite. "I really appreciate your help. It's only for one night." Mark crossed his arms over his chest and looked at her with clear skepticism. "I didn't have a choice. The front desk begged me for 10 minutes. Besides, I couldn't let someone spend the night in the cold." His words were practical, but his tone was cold and emotionless. Justina felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. This man clearly wasn't happy with this situation, and his arrogance was beginning to irritate her. "I understand. I'll try not to disturb you," she replied stiffly, heading to her bedroom. Over the next few hours, Justina and Mark shared the suite space in silence. She worked at her laptop, preparing for tomorrow's presentation, while he sat in the living room reviewing documents and taking business calls. Every interaction between them was brief and tense. Around 10 p.m., Justina emerged from her bedroom to make herself tea in the suite's small kitchenette. Mark sat on the couch, staring at his phone screen with furrowed brows. "May I ask what you do?" Justina asked, trying to break the icy silence filling the room. Mark looked up, as if surprised she was even speaking to him. "I'm an investor. I manage a venture capital fund. And you?" "I'm a digital marketing consultant. I have a presentation tomorrow for a potential client." "I see," he replied shortly, returning to his phone. Justina clenched her teeth. This man was impossible. Not a shred of politeness, not a hint of interest. She returned to her bedroom, closing the door harder than intended. But sleep didn't come easily. Despite the comfortable bed and the sweet silence, Justina felt restless. She thought about tomorrow's presentation, about her life in Milwaukee, about how strange and unpredictable all of this was. Around 2 a.m., she heard noise from the living room. She got up and quietly opened her bedroom door. Mark stood by the window, looking at the snow-covered city. His silhouette appeared lonely in the faint light from street lamps penetrating through the glass. "Is everything all right?" Justina asked quietly, emerging from her bedroom. Mark turned clearly and surprised by her presence. "Yes, everything's fine. I'm sorry if I woke you." "You didn't wake me. I couldn't sleep." For a moment they stood in silence, looking at each other. In his eyes, Justina noticed something she hadn't seen before: exhaustion, perhaps even sadness. "Difficult day?" she asked gently. Mark hesitated, as if considering whether he should answer. "You could say that. Sometimes business demands more than a person can give." "I understand that feeling," Justina said, sitting on the couch. "I often feel pressure to always be at the top, for everything to be perfect." Mark sat beside her, maintaining a safe distance. For the first time, his face softened. "You're from Milwaukee?" "Yes. I've lived there for 5 years. Are you from Chicago?" "I was born here, but I travel a lot. Sometimes I forget what normalcy looks like." Justina nodded, understanding. Their conversation flowed slowly, but gradually the atmosphere between them began to thaw. Mark told her about his investments, about companies he supported, about financial market challenges. Justina shared her experiences in marketing, about difficult clients, and the satisfaction of work well done. Hours passed unnoticed. Justina began to realize that beneath that cold facade, Mark was an intelligent man, passionate about his work. His initial arrogance was beginning to seem more like a defense mechanism than a true part of his character. "You know, I think you're not as bad as I thought at first," Justina said with a slight smile. Mark raised an eyebrow, and his lips curved into a rare but genuine smile. "And you're not as irritating as I expected." They both laughed, and the tension that had earlier filled the suite began to disappear. It was already 4 a.m. when they realized how late it was. "We should sleep. Tomorrow's a long day," Mark said, standing from the couch. "You're right. Thank you for the conversation. It was unexpectedly nice." "For me too," he admitted quietly. As they returned to their bedrooms, Justina felt something strange, as if this chance situation had become the beginning of something more. She didn't yet know what, but something in the way Mark looked at her before closing his door made her heart beat faster. Justina woke with the feeling she'd slept only a few minutes. Winter morning light penetrated through her bedroom curtains, casting pale reflections on the suite walls. She looked at the clock on the nightstand, 7:30. The conference started at 10, which gave her enough time to prepare. She got up quickly, feeling a mixture of nerves and exhaustion after an almost sleepless night. The memory of her nighttime conversation with Mark returned with surprising clarity. This man who'd initially seemed so cold and unapproachable had turned out to be someone completely different once he dropped his defensive mask. She took a quick shower and dressed in an elegant navy suit she'd specifically prepared for today's presentation. She had to look professional and confident, even if inside she felt shaken after such an unusual night. When she emerged from her bedroom, she saw Mark was already awake. He stood in the kitchenette, preparing coffee in an elegant espresso machine. He was dressed in a charcoal suit that emphasized his athletic build, and his hair was carefully combed. He looked like someone accustomed to controlling every aspect of his life. "Good morning," he said, looking up and noticing her. "Would you like coffee? I just brewed some." "Good morning. Yes, please. Thank you," Justina replied, approaching closer. Mark poured 2 cups of fragrant coffee and handed her one. Their fingers touched for a moment as she accepted the cup, and Justina felt a strange tingling in her hand. She quickly withdrew her hand, pretending nothing had happened. "How did you sleep?" Mark asked, leaning against the kitchen counter and sipping his coffee. "Not much, to be honest. I thought too much about today's presentation." "I understand. I didn't sleep very well either. I usually have trouble sleeping in hotels." For a moment they drank coffee in silence, but this time the silence wasn't unpleasant. There was something comfortable about it, as if their nighttime conversation had created an invisible thread of understanding between them. "What time does your presentation start?" Mark finally asked. 10 o'clock. I need to leave in an hour to get there and review my notes one more time." "Good luck. I'm sure you'll do." "Great. Yesterday you talked about your projects with such passion. It's hard to imagine anyone could resist your arguments." Justina felt a blush creeping onto her cheeks. "Thank you. That's kind of you to say." Mark nodded, and for a moment their eyes met. Justina saw in his gaze something she couldn't fully identify. Warmth, perhaps even interest, completely different from the coldness that had emanated from him yesterday. "And you? Do you have any important meetings today?" she asked, trying to maintain the conversation. "Yes, I have a meeting at 1 with representatives of a tech startup I'm considering investing in. It'll be a long day." "Sounds serious." "It usually is, but today I feel strangely distracted," he admitted with a slight smile. Justina wasn't sure if this was a reference to their shared night, but she decided not to pursue the topic. She finished her coffee and checked her purse, making sure she had all her documents and laptop. "I have to go," she said, moving toward the suite door. "Justina!" Mark called before she could leave. She turned, surprised he'd used her first name. "Yes?" "Good luck. And maybe later we could have dinner together, if of course you have time and want to." His proposal completely surprised her. For a fraction of a second, Justina wondered if she'd heard correctly. Why was this man, who yesterday had been so reluctant even for basic politeness, now inviting her to dinner? "That would be nice," she finally replied, trying to sound casual. "I'll call you after the presentation." "Excellent. I'll be waiting." Justina left the suite with a feeling of lightness she couldn't fully explain. As she rode the elevator down, she thought about this strange turn of events. Just yesterday evening she couldn't stand Mark's presence, and now she felt something completely different. Curiosity, maybe even attraction. The conference was held at a modern business center near Willis Tower. When Justina arrived, the hall was already full of people, entrepreneurs, marketers, representatives of various companies. The atmosphere was electrified, full of expectation and professionalism. Her presentation was scheduled for 11:30. She spent the first hour networking, talking with potential clients and other conference participants. But despite her external calm, inside she felt growing tension. This was one of the most important presentations of her career. When her turn came, she walked onto the stage with a smile, trying to look confident. The hall was large, and hundreds of pairs of eyes looked at her expectantly. Her presentation concerned innovative digital marketing strategies for small and medium-sized enterprises. "Good morning, everyone," she began, feeling her voice echo off the hall walls. "My name is Justina Leschinska, and today, I'd like to talk with you about how small companies can compete with large corporations in the digital world." For the next 45 minutes, Justina led her presentation with precision and passion. She showed slides, shared case studies, answered questions. With each minute, she felt her confidence growing. People in the hall were engaged, taking notes, nodding in agreement. When she finished, the hall erupted in loud applause. Justina felt a wave of relief and pride. It worked. It really worked. After the presentation, she was surrounded by a group of interested entrepreneurs who wanted to talk about potential collaboration. She handed out business cards, noted email addresses, scheduled future meetings. This was one of those days that showed her why she loved her work so much. It was after 3 when she could finally sit and catch her breath. She pulled her phone from her purse and saw she had 2 missed messages. One was from a colleague in Milwaukee, the other from Mark. She opened Mark's message with a beating heart. "How did the presentation go? I hope well. Are we still on for dinner? If so, I can reserve a table at a restaurant for 6:30. Let me know." Justina smiled, despite herself. His message was simple and concrete, but she detected something more in it, genuine concern and interest. She replied quickly, "Presentation went great. Thanks for asking. Dinner sounds perfect. 6:30 works for me. Where should we meet?" The response came almost immediately. "Glad to hear it. The restaurant is called Girl and the Goat. It's in the West Loop, not far from downtown. I can pick you up at 6 guy." Justina hesitated. Sharing a car ride seemed more personal than meeting at a restaurant. But something in her, some part she usually ignored, told her to agree. "All right, I'll be waiting in the hotel lobby at 6 wow." She returned to the hotel around 5, giving herself an hour to prepare. In her room, the same suite she still shared with Mark, she quickly showered and changed into an elegant black dress that reached her knees. She added delicate jewelry and let her hair down, allowing it to fall freely on her shoulders. When she looked at herself, in the mirror, she saw a woman who looked confident and attractive, but inside felt strange butterflies in her stomach that she couldn't ignore. At exactly 6, she descended to the lobby. Mark was already waiting, standing by the reception desk and reviewing something on his phone. When he saw her, his face brightened with a genuine smile that made Justina feel warmth in her chest. "You look beautiful," he said, approaching her. "Thank you. You look very elegant too," she replied, noticing he'd changed into a more casual but equally stylish outfit. They left the hotel together, where a luxury black car with a driver was waiting. Mark opened the door for her and waited until she was seated before getting in beside her. In the car, they talked about their days. Justina told about her presentation, people's reactions, potential new clients. Mark listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions and appearing genuinely interested. "My meeting went well too," he shared when Justina finished. "I decided to invest in that startup. They have a great idea and passion that's so often lacking in this business." "That's wonderful. You must be proud you can support such projects." "I am. But sometimes I wonder if it's enough, if just money and business strategy really change the world." Justina looked at him, surprised by this honesty. This was a side of Mark she hadn't seen yesterday, reflective, perhaps even a bit melancholic. "I think what you do has enormous significance. You give people chances they wouldn't otherwise have." "Thank you. That's nice to hear." Girl and the Goat was an elegant place with dimmed lights and an intimate atmosphere. They were seated at a corner table with a view of a picturesque courtyard that looked beautiful even in winter, thanks to decorative lighting. They ordered dinner. Justina chose roasted fish with seasonal vegetables. Mark decided on filet mignon. With it, a bottle of good red wine the waiter recommended enthusiastically. As they ate, their conversation became increasingly personal. Mark told her about his childhood in Chicago, about his father who was a businessman and taught him everything about finance, but never showed him the emotional side of life. Justina shared her story, growing up in a small town outside Milwaukee, moving to the city for college, difficulties finding her professional path. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a constant race," Justina admitted, sipping wine. "There's always another project, another client, another goal to achieve. And when I achieve it, there's the next one." "I understand that feeling better than you think," Mark replied quietly. "For years I thought financial success would bring me happiness, and now I have everything I wanted and still feel this emptiness." Their eyes met across the table, and in that moment Justina felt something intense, a connection that went beyond ordinary dinner conversation. It was understanding, empathy, maybe even something deeper. "After dinner," Mark proposed, walking her back to the hotel. They walked slowly through Chicago's snowy streets, side by side, sometimes accidentally brushing shoulders. The city looked magical in the light of street lamps and holiday decorations. "Thank you for tonight," Justina said when they reached the hotel. "It was really pleasant." "For me too. I don't remember the last time I enjoyed a dinner so much." They entered the elevator together and rode up in silence, but it wasn't an awkward silence. There was tension in it, expectation of something inevitable. When the suite door closed behind them, Mark turned to Justina. They stood facing each other in the hallway, breathing quickly. "Justina," he began, but didn't finish the sentence. Instead, unexpectedly, he pulled her to him and kissed her. His lips were warm and certain, and the kiss was intense and full of suppressed emotions. Justina was surprised but didn't pull away. Instead, she responded to the kiss with equal passion, feeling all barriers between them disappear. This was crazy, unpredictable, and completely uncontrolled. Exactly like this entire situation from the beginning. Justina woke slowly, feeling the warmth of morning sun on her face. For a moment she didn't know where she was, but when she opened her eyes and saw the elegant hotel suite interior, everything returned with surprising clarity. Last night's evening, dinner, the kiss in the hallway. She turned her head and saw Mark sleeping beside her. His face was calm and relaxed in sleep, his arm resting on her waist in an intimate and natural gesture. Justina felt a mixture of emotions, surprise, embarrassment, but also something warm and pleasant she couldn't ignore. "What did I do?" she thought, trying to organize last night's events in her head. Everything happened so fast. One kiss led to another, then to conversation that lasted until late-night hours. She hadn't planned this. She hadn't intended to emotionally engage with someone she'd met only 2 days ago. But there was something real about it, something authentic she couldn't deny. She gently lifted his arm and got out of bed, trying not to wake Mark. She found her dress from the previous evening and quickly put it on, then went to the suite's living room. It was 6:30 a.m., and outside the window Chicago was slowly waking to life. She sat on the couch, trying to gather her thoughts. She was supposed to return to Milwaukee tonight. Her train ticket was reserved for 6 p.m. But now, after everything that happened, she wasn't sure if she wanted to go back, if she wanted to leave Mark and this strange, intense connection that had formed between them. "Can you hear my thoughts?" a quiet voice asked behind her. Justina turned and saw Mark standing in the bedroom doorway. He wore only pajama pants and his hair was tousled. He looked younger and more vulnerable than ever before. "You couldn't sleep?" she asked quietly. "I woke up and noticed you weren't there. Thought maybe you'd run away." He smiled slightly, approaching her. "I didn't run away. I just needed a moment to think." Mark sat beside her on the couch, maintaining a small distance. "I understand. Yesterday was intense." "That's one word we could use," Justina replied with a slight smile. For a moment they sat in silence, both absorbed in their thoughts. Outside, the world continued its rhythm. Cars drove through streets. People hurried to work. The city pulsed with life. But in this suite, in this moment, time seemed to stand still. "Justina, I need to tell you something," Mark began finally, his voice serious. "What happened yesterday wasn't an accident for me. From the moment I first saw you, I felt something strange. You irritated me, that's true, but only because I was terrified of what I was feeling." Justina looked at him, surprised. "Terrified? Of what?" "That someone could move me in such a way. For years I've built walls around myself, protected myself from people, from emotions. I thought it was the only way to survive in my world. And then you appeared and all those walls started crumbling. I don't know what to say," Justina admitted honestly. "I feel something for you too, something I don't understand. But Mark, we just met. This is all happening so fast. I know. And I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know how I feel. To know this wasn't just one night for me." His honesty moved her deeply. Justina reached out and gently touched his face. "It wasn't just one night for me either." Mark caught her hand and kissed it tenderly. In his eyes, Justina saw something she hadn't seen before. Hope, vulnerability, genuine human emotion. "What do we do now?" she asked quietly. "I don't know. But I'd like a chance to find out. I'd like a chance to know you better, see where this takes us. I live in Milwaukee. You live in Chicago. It's not an easy situation. The distance between Milwaukee and Chicago is 90 minutes by train. That's not the end of the world," he replied with determination. "If we both want this, we can work it out." Justina wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe this could work, that their connection was strong enough to overcome all obstacles. But part of her, the pragmatic and cautious part, still had doubts. They spent the rest of the morning together, talking about their lives, dreams, fears. Mark told her about his difficult relationship with his father, who always expected perfection from him and was never satisfied with his achievements. Justina shared her worries about the future, about whether her career would bring her fulfillment or just more projects and goals. It was already 11 when they realized neither had eaten breakfast. Mark proposed they go out for brunch at one of his favorite restaurants downtown. They dressed quickly and left the hotel together. Outside it was cold, but the sun shone brightly, reflecting off snow covering the sidewalks. Mark took Justina's hand and led her through Chicago's crowded streets. The restaurant he took her to was called The Publican and was located in a historic building in the West Loop. The interior was elegant and cozy, with high ceilings and large windows through which natural light poured. They ordered a full breakfast, scrambled eggs with smoked salmon, fresh rolls, fruit, and coffee. As they ate, their conversation was light and full of laughter. Justina discovered Mark had a great sense of humor he usually hid behind his professional facade. "You know you talk about business even during breakfast?" Justina joked when Mark started telling about one of his investment projects. Do I really? I'm sorry. It's a bad habit. He smiled, embarrassed. No, it's sweet. I see how passionate you are about your work. Aren't you passionate about yours? He asked, raising an eyebrow. I am. But sometimes I wonder if I should be more balanced. Less work, more life. I understand that feeling. Maybe we both need someone to remind us of that. Maybe so, Justina agreed quietly. After brunch, they went for a walk through the Loop. Chicago looked beautiful in winter sun, colorful buildings, cobblestone streets, historic churches. Mark showed her his favorite places, telling stories about the city he'd known since childhood. See that building? He pointed to an elegant townhouse across the square. My grandfather had an apartment there before the war. I lost him before I was born, but my father always told me about, him. That must have been difficult for your family. It was, but it also taught us the value of what we have. My father always said you should protect family and traditions no matter what. And do you believe that? Mark hesitated. I used to think so, but now I'm not sure. Maybe sometimes you need to let go of the past to create a future. That's a wise approach. As they walked on, light snow began to fall. White flakes settled gently on their hair and clothes, creating a magical atmosphere. Justina felt Mark squeeze her hand tighter, as if he didn't want to let go. They stopped at Buckingham Fountain, the monumental landmark in the heart of the city. Around them were lots of tourists taking photos, but they saw only each other. Justina, I want you to know this isn't just about romance for me, Mark said seriously. I want something real, something that matters. Me too, Mark, but this is all so new, so uncertain. I know. But isn't that the point? To risk, to allow yourself uncertainty? You're right. But I need time to process all this. I understand. Take all the time you need. I won't pressure you. They returned to the hotel late in the afternoon. Justina knew she needed to pack her things and prepare to return to Milwaukee. But as she began folding her clothes into her suitcase, she felt a strange heaviness in her heart. I don't want you to leave, Mark said, standing in the bedroom doorway and watching her. I don't want to leave either, but I have a life in Milwaukee, work, an apartment. I know. I'm not trying to stop you. I just want you to know I'll be waiting for you. His words made Justina feel tears rising to her eyes. She walked to him and hugged him tightly. I promise I'll call. I promise we'll try to work this out. That's all I'm asking. Mark drove her to Union Station. The train to Milwaukee was scheduled to depart at 6:15. They stood together on the platform, holding hands and trying not to think about saying goodbye. Will you call when you get there? Mark asked. Of course. And you write me too when you're home. I will. When the departure signal sounded, Justina felt panic. She wasn't ready to say goodbye. She wasn't ready to leave him here. But she knew she had to. They kissed one last time. A long, intense kiss that said more than 1,000 words. Then Justina boarded the train and found her seat by the window. As the train began pulling away from the platform, she saw Mark standing, motionless, waving to her. She waved back, feeling tears streaming down her cheeks. Throughout the journey to Milwaukee, Justina looked through the window at passing landscapes and thought about what had happened. 3 days ago, she was a solitary woman focused only on her career. Now everything had changed. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Mark. I already miss you. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. Justina smiled through tears and replied, I miss you too. We'll talk soon. When? The train pulled into Milwaukee's station. It was after 9 p.m. Justina took her suitcase and got off, feeling the chill of the winter evening on her face. The city looked familiar and cozy, but at the same time as if something important was missing. She returned to her apartment and went inside, closing the door behind her. Everything was exactly as she'd left it, her furniture, her books, her life. But she herself felt changed. She sat on the couch and looked at her phone. She had several missed messages from friends and clients, but one caught her attention. It was from Mark, sent a few minutes ago. "Good night, Justina. Dream about us." Justina went to bed that evening with the thought that her life had just entered a new, unknown path. She didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to find out. 2 weeks had passed since Justina's departure from Chicago. 2 weeks filled with daily messages, long phone conversations late in the evening, and a growing feeling neither could ignore anymore. Justina had returned to her routine in Milwaukee, meetings with clients, presentations, work on new projects. But something had changed. Her apartment, which had always been her refuge, now seemed empty. The city she loved had lost part of its charm. Every evening when she finished work, the first thing she did was check her phone. Mark was always there, with a message, a question about her day, sometimes just a photo of something that reminded him of her. These small gestures filled the emptiness but simultaneously deepened the longing. It was a Thursday evening when her phone rang. Justina answered immediately, recognizing Mark's number. "Hi," she said warmly, lying on the couch with the phone to her ear. "Hi, Justina. How was your day?" His voice sounded tired but warm. "Long. I had 3 clients, one after another. And yours?" "Similar. But I'm not calling to complain about work. I need to ask you something." "I'm listening," she replied, feeling her heart accelerate. "Next weekend I have off. I mean really off. No meetings, no obligations. I'd like to come to Milwaukee. I'd like to spend that time with you, if of course you want." Justina felt a wave of emotions. For the last 2 weeks she'd been thinking about this moment, about when they'd see each other again. But now that it was really going to happen, she also felt fear. What if reality wasn't as magical as those 3 days in Chicago? What if what had formed between them couldn't withstand the test of time? "I want to," she finally said, breaking through her doubts. "I really want to see you." "Excellent. I'll arrive Friday evening. I can book a hotel so I'm not a burden." "Don't be silly. You can stay with me. I have an extra bedroom if that's more comfortable for you." Mark laughed quietly. "We'll see how things go. Thank you, Justina." When they hung up, Justina sat and looked at her apartment with a critical eye. It was neat, but impersonal. It needed life, warmth. Over the next few days, she worked on transforming it. She bought fresh flowers, cleaned every corner, changed the sheets to new, more elegant ones. She wanted Mark to feel welcome, to see her world as it truly was. Friday came faster than she expected. Justina left work early and prepared dinner. Nothing fancy, just homemade borscht and pierogi she made herself. She wanted to show him the authenticity of her life, not just elegant restaurants and hotels. Mark arrived at 7. When she opened the door and saw him standing in the hallway with a small travel bag and a bouquet of red roses, she felt all her doubts disappear. He was here. He'd really come. "Hi," he said with a smile, handing her the flowers. "I missed you." "I missed you too," she replied, letting him inside. Mark looked around her apartment with interest. It was smaller than his Chicago penthouse, but cozy and full of personal details. Books on shelves, photos on walls, plants on windowsills. "It's a beautiful place," he said honestly. "It feels like you." "Thank you. I wanted it to be cozy, for you to feel at home. I already do." They ate dinner at a small table in the kitchen, talking and laughing like old friends. Mark complimented her cooking, and Justina told him about Milwaukee's history. about places she wanted to show him. "Tomorrow I can take you to the art museum, to the historic Third Ward, maybe even to the lakefront if we have time," she said enthusiastically. "Sounds great. But honestly, the most important thing for me is being with you. It doesn't matter where." His words made Justina feel warmth in her heart. After dinner, they moved to the living room, where they sat together on the couch, drinking wine and continuing their conversation. But this time it was more serious. "Justina, I need to tell you something important," Mark began, setting down his glass on the table. "These last 2 weeks have been difficult for me. Not because something wasn't working between us, but because I realized how much I need you in my life. And that terrifies me." "Why does it terrify you?" "Because I've always been independent. I always thought I didn't need anyone, that I could manage alone. And now, for the first time in my life, I feel incomplete without you. It's a feeling I can't control." Justina took his hand in hers. "I understand that, because I feel the same. My whole life was planned, organized. And then you appeared and everything changed. At first I thought it was just fascination, something passing. But it's not passing, is it?" "No, it's not passing," Mark confirmed quietly. "Justina, I've fallen in love with you. I know it's fast, I know it might sound crazy, but it's true. I've fallen in love with your passion, your laugh, the way you look at the world." Justina felt tears rising to her eyes. "I've fallen in love with you too, Mark. And that terrifies me most, because I don't know how this is supposed to work. You in Chicago, me in Milwaukee. Our lives are so different." "They don't have to be that different if we want them not to be," Mark said with determination. "Listen, I've been thinking about this for the last 2 weeks. A lot of thinking. My work allows me to work remotely most of the time. I can be anywhere there's internet and a phone. I can move to Milwaukee. I can be close to you." Justina looked at him, surprised. "You want to move for me?" "Not just for you, for us. Chicago has always been a place of work for me, never a real home. Maybe it's time to change something. Maybe it's time to start building a life, not just a career. But what about your obligations, your clients? I can travel to Chicago when needed. I can manage everything from there. Technology gives us those possibilities. The only thing I can't do remotely is be with you." His determination and honesty moved her deeply. Justina realized Mark was serious. This wasn't an empty declaration. This was a concrete plan, a considered decision. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything now. Just think about it. I'll give you time. But I want you to know I'm ready for this step. I'm ready to risk everything for us." For the rest of the evening, they talked about the future, about possibilities, about what their life together could look like. Mark talked about his business plans, about wanting to invest more in Milwaukee startups, build his presence here. Justina shared her dreams about expanding her business, maybe even opening her own marketing agency. When it was late evening, they both felt tired. Justina had prepared the guest bedroom for Mark, but when they stood in the hallway, neither wanted to part. "Can I stay with you?" Mark asked quietly. "Just be close. Nothing else has to happen. I just want to be near you." "I'd like that," Justina replied honestly. That night they lay together in her bed, embracing and talking in whispers about everything and nothing, about their pasts, mistakes they'd made, hopes for the future. It was an intimacy different from physical. It was an intimacy of souls that connected them more strongly than anything else. The next day, they spent exploring Milwaukee. Justina took Mark to the Milwaukee Art Museum, where they climbed to admire the city view. Then they walked through the historic Third Ward, stopping at small cafes and antique shops. Mark was enchanted by the city's atmosphere, its history and culture. I see why you love this so much, he said as they sat in a cafe on the Milwaukee Riverwalk. This place has soul. It does. And now I want it to be your place too. That evening they returned to Justina's apartment, tired but happy. They ate a simple dinner and sat together on the couch, looking at the city lights through the window. Justina, I need to know, Mark said finally. What do you think about what we talked about yesterday? About my moving here? About us? Justina took a deep breath. All day she'd been thinking about it, weighing all the pros and cons, analyzing the risk. But now, sitting beside him and feeling his warmth, she realized the decision was already made. I think it's crazy, she said finally. I think it's fast and risky. I think we should be more careful. Mark nodded, looking disappointed. But I also think, Justina continued with a smile, that sometimes you have to risk. Sometimes you have to trust what you feel, even if it doesn't make sense logically. And I feel this is right. That we are right, so I'm saying yes. I want to try. I want to see what it's like when we're together, really together. Not just for a weekend, but seriously. Mark kissed her long and passionately, and Justina felt all her doubts disappearing. This was the right decision. Not perfect, not without risk, but right. In the following weeks, Mark began organizing his move to Milwaukee. He rented an apartment in the city center, not far from Justina, where he could work and receive clients. His life began to change. Less business travel, more time in one place, more time with Justina. Their relationship developed slowly but surely. They learned each other's habits, tolerated small, irritating things, supported each other in difficult moments. Justina discovered new sides of Mark, his sensitivity, his sense of humor, his capacity for deep love. Mark in turn learned from her how to be more open, how to enjoy simple things, how to allow himself to be vulnerable. 3 months had passed since their first meeting in the Chicago hotel. It was a beautiful March day when Mark took Justina for a walk to Lake Park. Trees were beginning to sprout their first buds, and the air was full of spring's promise. I have something for you, Mark said, stopping by a bench. What? Justina asked, intrigued. Mark pulled a small box from his pocket. No, it's not what you think, he laughed, seeing her expression. It's something else. He opened the box, and Justina saw 2 keys inside. These are keys to my apartment, he explained. I want you to have them. I want you to be able to come whenever you want, to feel like it's your place too. Because you know, I've been thinking lately. Maybe in a few months we could look for something together. A place that would truly be ours. Justina took the keys, feeling tears rising to her eyes. This was another step, another sign that what was between them was real and lasting. I'd like that, she said quietly. I'd really like that. Excellent. Then let's do it. They kissed under a blooming tree, surrounded by people walking through the park, but feeling as if they were alone in the world. This was a moment they'd remember forever, a moment when past met future, when 2 strangers became family. Justina knew their path wouldn't be easy. There would be difficult days, conflicts, challenges. But now, standing in Mark's arms, she felt certain they could handle anything together. Because sometimes, love comes in the most unexpected way, in a shared hotel room, in irritation that transforms into fascination, in a kiss that changes everything. And sometimes, that's enough to build something beautiful and lasting. If this story touched you, remember, the person who irritates you most at first meeting might be the one who completes you best. Share this with someone who needs to hear that forced proximity can reveal hidden connections, that walls we build for protection sometimes keep out exactly what we need, that moving to another city for someone isn't weakness but the bravest kind of strength, and that sometimes a computer error becomes the universe's way of putting you exactly where you belong. Subscribe if you believe in hotel suite strangers who become soulmates, in millionaires who discover wealth means nothing without the right person, in the magic of 2 a.m. conversations that change everything, and in the radical idea that the most annoying person in the room might be your future. Because sometimes all it takes is one shared space, one unexpected kiss, and the courage to say yes to the crazy possibility of us.